know how many of them there are. I know that recently my husband went to the premises, which is now considered to be hospital. So he said it's really hot there and stiff air is there. So as for the hospital, there is not such a great opportunity to give food of them. They're out of food in the so-called hospital. When we say a critical situation, it's really critical. And of course, first and foremost, we need to evacuate our wounded people who can die just during the next 24 hours. But we insist on the evacuation of everybody because it's just absurd. We are taking out only wounded and then we'll have more wounded tomorrow because the shelling is constant and permanent. We need to speak about evacuation, the corridor for the whole garrison, because only in this way we will be able to save lots of people. They are still alive, they are wounded, some of them are just uh, partially capable to move, and the situation with the wounded is awful. Well, lots of people said that you're wounded when you don't have a leg or arm, when you have injuries and internal organ injuries. But for Azov regiment, some of the scratches or a fragment of the shell in your arm is not considered to be an injury, in fact. And as for antibiotics, as it was already mentioned, antibiotics are really very scarce for really severe traumas and surgeries. People with amputations are just they're not given painkillers and antibiotics. People with severe injuries are just trying to get through that. They are trying to be patient. So the situation is really so critical. And also, I'd like to say that yeah, the limbs without even very light traumas are being cut off, and they don't have any medicine, any just a glass of water for everybody, and they have a gulp of water once per 5 or 6 hours. There is the problem with sepsis. There is really rot in the bunkers, so you cannot stay there for a long time. So I think that every single person will have to give treatment and rehabilitation after that, because these premises are really harmful for everybody. And as for the expectations, I think that the person who lost the leg or the arm to protect his country, he is still hoping that this country will save them. So we do hope that the maximum efforts will be spent, because in our opinion, the chances are really high if everybody is activated, if everybody is involved in the process, the chances are high. We don't like the rhetorics about taking captive because we understand that this is the tragedy and they are Spartans. No, we should do whatever is possible just now. Could I pose one more question, please? Okay, the last one from you. Yeah, I do apologize. I didn't know that there is this sound. I would like also to say that we are really uh, this is the pain for everybody in our country about Azov regiment. But my second question is whether the guys who are not wounded, do they have the opportunity to get out of bunkers to the surface? Can they see sunlight at least? The majority of time they are sitting in the bunkers because these are the permanent shellings, 3-ton bombs which are flying and dropped onto them, the aircrafts which are working just permanently, the artillery from the ships and the land artillery, the tanks which are very close. So for about 3 days sometimes they don't go to the surface. Olga's husband did not leave the bunker since the 28th of April. He didn't get out for a single time. They don't see sun at all. They are just breathing with this fungus on the walls. And when they are getting out, they're searching for food. They're searching for water. My husband is really far from the internet coverage spot, so he needs to get out, risking his life under the shelling, and he needs to get to the internet to write a message to me. We need to understand that the in different parts of Azovstal, there are different conditions. For instance, my husband can sometimes move and even sent me a picture of the flower, but some of the guys don't have such an opportunity. Thank you. Let us give the opportunity to pose the question to next journalists. Please raise your hands if you have a question. Okay. Let us give the opportunity to Antonina Kucherenko, please.
Доброго
Можете
дня,
задавати?
дівчата. Чути
Hello,
мене?
do you hear me? Yes, we do.
З кимось із вас я так само спілкувалася
I've already
в
communicated
месенджерах,
with
це
one of you in
підтримую
messengers.
зараз
I'd like to support you
голос.
now again with my
Дівчата, ми нереально
voice.
вами
We
дуже
are
задоволені,
really
емоції.
just
Я хочу запитати
admire you.
Катерину, я знаю,
So I
що
would like to
ви
ask Katerina, I know that you've met
сильно
the Pope.
завершилася ця
What
розмова,
was
чи
the
вам
end of the
пообіцяли
conversation where you
підтримку
promised some of the
словесну, так вам
support,
пообіцяли,
but
що
the words,
посприяють тому, щоб хлопці,
besides
які
the
потрапили
words,
в поранені,
did they
щоб
promise to
які
help
зараз воюють в Україні?
evacuate the wounded people and the ones? But
ТВ
are you?
Київ, ви
I'm the TV
присутні
channel
були?
Kyiv. Okay, TV channel Kyiv. We went there together with Yulia, and it was unexpected that he even stood up because there were people before us, and he just uh, greeted them. But when he saw us, he stood up. He was standing for a long time, and in his gestures and in his looks, we understood that he is full of empathy to our problem. He understood what we were speaking about. So we gave him the pictures and 2 letters, and we asked whether there is an opportunity at all. Did he ever consider the opportunity to come to Mariupol or Zaporizhia to evacuate and to save all of other guys who are staying there? He said that altogether he communicated with the cardinal and he answered that this is not the issue. Yes, this is the quote, in fact. For us, this is the new hope, and as for now, we are just following the development of the situation to see how this issue will be solved at the diplomatic and political level, because we understand that there are countries who are ready to help evacuate, but the only problem is Putin, his surrounding, the people who are blocking all of the opportunities, all of our intentions and wishes, all of the positive decisions of this work. So lots of people would like to help. So in fact, we could see out of how he behaved that he nodded, that informationally and emotionally he was deep in that. He knew that. And as far as I understood, he had already some offers. But the problem is, it shouldn't be just the Pope. There should be everybody who can press onto Putin and the world political paradigm. There should be all of the people who will unite and will just pose the question whether Putin let them out or he cannot have any minimal relations with the civilized world. Then another question. You've said that the guys had offers and suggestions to put down their arms. Ukraine does not even doubt that they will not do that. But how many suggestions do they have? Oh, they do. They hear those offers to surrender all the time. But we know that they don't deserve for that, to be tortured, to be dying in tortures. They don't deserve for that. They've done a lot now. So they will stay till the end, because in 2014, they went there. In 2014 and 15, they went according to their heart. They were volunteers and they understood that this could be the one-way ticket. So they are for Ukraine till the end. For example, there was the Azov warrior, and he was in captivity. He was staying in captivity, but then his mother got the pictures of his body that he was tortured and killed. There's one more case of the Azov warrior who came there in 2014. The Russians even took the propaganda video. Look, you can go to our captivity, you can surrender, they said. But as it was expected, they tortured him, they killed him, and they sent the dead body picture to his mother. Just imagine the horror and the shame. This was the story in Mariupol, in fact, what they're doing now there. But even before that, since 2014, only one Azov regiment warrior came back from the captivity from Russia without the teeth, with the damaged internal organs in the awful state. All the rest were just tortured and killed. So captivity is not an option. The attitude of Russians to Azov regiment is very peculiar. It's much worse than to any other units because of propaganda, because of their professional and military capable unit, which is really motivated, which will never have any negotiations or deals with the Russians. You know that there was the story with Baroniku who turned out to be a traitor. This is the example that Azov would never do that. So the the Azov regiment is the global goal for them. So I'd like to tell one more story about the evacuation done by the Azov regiment, because you need to know that Ms. Vereshchuk, the representatives of the authorities, the Red Cross, were not allowed to get to Azovstal. The evacuation was done by Azov regiment only. The commander Katerina's husband, Denis Prokopenko, was doing that only physically with his own hands, and it was not done by the authorities. So during this evacuation, once the Russians just shot the bus, just shelled the bus where the Azov regiment warriors were going to the women. So 3 of them died, 6 of them were severely injured. This is the attitude of the Russians towards Azov regiment. Thank you for your answers. Dear journalists, are there any other questions? Yes, let's give the floor to Mr. Dvalishvili. You can now turn on your mic. You can unmute yourself. Unfortunately, we don't hear you. We don't hear you somehow. There are some technical issues.
Так,
Алло,
ми вас
Hello?
чуємо.
Yes, we hear you now.
вітаю.
Hello.
Будь ласка, извините, я не
I do
хорошо розмовляю
apologize. I
по-українському.
don't know
Я
Ukrainian
журналіст
that
із
well. I'm
Грузії.
the journalist
Меня
from
зовут
Georgia. My
Гугадвалишвили.
name is
Мы поддерживаем
Gugudvalishvili.
вас.
We are
Я хочу
supporting
это
you,
очень
and
хорошо,
I'd like
чтобы
to
вся Украина
articulate
и
that
народ
for the
поняли,
whole
что мы
Ukraine and the
грузины
people of
чисто
Ukraine
с
to
вами, и
understand
то, что
that
сейчас у
we
нас происходит,
Georgians
это
are
мы
with
тоже
you,
боремся
and
с
what
ними.
is happening
Так что
here
вы
at our
молодцы, вы
place,
для
we
нас
are also
герои, вы
fighting
для нас
against them.
всегда
You are
останетесь
cool, you are
друзьями,
heroes for us, and you will
братьями,
be always
сестрами и так
friends for
далее.
us,
Так что
our
мы вас
brethren
очень
and
кохаем,
sisters
и
for us.
мы с
So we
вами.
really love you, and we are with you.
У меня такой вопрос.
I have a following
Были разговоры
question.
насчет
There were certain conversations and
зеленого
talks
коридора в
about the
другую
green
страну,
corridor into a
чтобы
third
могли
country
азовцы как-то,
for
или в
the Azov
Турцию, да,
regiment
был
to be
разговор на
able
эту
to get to
тему.
Turkey, for
Несколько дней
instance.
насчет этого мы
Several
ничего не
days,
слышали. Я
we
каждый
didn't
день
hear
как бы
about that
проверяю
for several
информацию,
days.
есть
I'm checking
ли
in for every
какая-нибудь
day about
информация
that.
насчет
Is
этого.
there any information about that now? Well, we are insisting on that every day because we understand that for Putin, for Russia, it's impossible to go on for Azov regiment to go on taking part in this war. So we developed such an option when Azov regiment are in the third country and they put down their arms and leave through the corridor to the third country. We are permanently speaking about this option. We ask different countries to be involved. We ask them to form this coalition, which will be insisting on that. And we ask everybody who can offer themselves as a third country to do that, because the more we speak about that, the more readiness we can see, the more will be the chances, the highest will be the chances about that. Thank you. Let's give the opportunity to pose the question to Ms. Kopanska.
Вітаю. Трошки у нас
Hello. Our sound is a bit bad because we are now on air. Do you hear us? Yes, we do. So first and foremost, ladies, both to the wives and the mothers of our defenders of Azovstal, the TV channel of Espresso, our whole newsroom, and all of our viewers express a huge gratitude to you, and we are really admire you. Please hold on, ladies. The hearts of all of the Ukrainians are with all of you. And the question from TV channel is the following. The Kalush Orchestra band soloist Oleg Psyuk devoted his victory at Eurovision to defenders of Azovstal, and he urged the world to help Mariupol and Azov regiment. What do you think about the significance of this victory, and which would be the effect of the victory dedicated to Mariupol and the Azovstal? We are really grateful for this step from the stage, risking his, in fact, victory, risking disqualification, because after he did this appeal by hashtag Save Azovstal, lots of people just used this hashtag. The statistics really grew, it increased, and much more people got to know about that. We're really grateful. We need to use this moment now, because there is even more content emerging about Azovstal in English. So we need to force and to promote this hashtag. And also we shouldn't forget that what Oleg Psyuk said, those really cool words from the stage of Eurovision, is still not the victory. We need to go on. We need to work actively, but really we are so grateful. And yesterday, I would say it was the happy evening. I was just smiling. And since the 24th of February, this was the first time when I was smiling. First, my husband wrote to me, then Kalush Orchestra said such things. That was a very brave decision, not to be afraid and to say those words from the stage. We are really happy and grateful for everybody who makes such statements and addresses, because according to our requests, lots of representatives of show business and for instance Hardkiss, this is the band who also made such an address. This is a kind of a chain reaction. We are grateful to Tina Karol, Svetoslav Vakarchuk, and lots of other celebrities who made those addresses. We thank the universities, we thank the businessmen, the unions, because this is the huge information campaign. It is so important. We urge everybody to join it. This is worth it. This really can change a lot. All of those actions are kind of little branches which we are throwing in this fire, and this fire is becoming brighter. Sooner or later it will bring some outcomes. We need to do that every day. We should record the addresses and statements, and soon it will give its own effect. The comment from the host, as it was mentioned by the Commission, which manages Eurovision, this is the humanitarian issue. It's not political. We are not speaking about helping this or that army. We need to solve the humanitarian disaster, the catastrophe which is ongoing now, and to evacuate the guys. The next question, please. Could you please use the function raise your hand?
В інтерфейсі Zoom ви зможете знайти.
In interface of Zoom, you can find the button raise the hand that should be in the center, maybe down there on your screen. Antonina Kucherenko has more questions.
Можете задавати?
Please. Yes, I would use such an opportunity that there is such a chance to pose one more question. I'd like to ask you, how do you live through this period? Are you spending this time together? How do you calm yourselves down? How do you live through that? Well, you know, it is much better than just to sit on our own in Ukraine. Of course, we did our volunteer work to this or that extent, but now we can feel the efficiency of our actions. Now it's much easier. Well, that's for me. Morally, it's hard. Because again, we can compare. You look at your own life, which is fully comfortable and convenient. You have food, water, medicine, and a comfortable bed, and it's awful. Because morally, you are in Azovstal for a long time, and I would exchange all of this comfort to be under shelling now with my husband, without food and without water. I understand that I'm important here because every day we are doing this information war. We are fighting Russian fakes and propaganda. We are shouting out in different countries about Azovstal and our husbands, and we can see some outcomes now, because the world before that did not know they analyzed that the first week while we have been in Europe, there were just the same questions. For instance, like, you are all Nazi and so on. But now we have a very strong argument, and these myths are really easy to be busted. So during this second week, not that many people ask about that. And sometimes they're even afraid to ask about that because they understand that it's ridiculous. It's too cynical. The real Nazi, the real terrorist is not Ukraine, but Russia. So we understand that we can see some of the results. We are fighting at our own front line, and we try to use all of the possible efforts to take out all of the people who are at Azovstal now. We will go on with our work. We are really missing Ukraine. We'd like to come back, and we do hope that soon we'll come back to our motherland and we'll see our relatives and our husbands, that everything will be okay. I would also like to add that the thing that we are now together and we have common issues and common goal, it helps us to live it through, in comparison with just telling about that separately from others. And secondly, you know, our husbands are showing incredible results every day in spite of the complicated conditions, and we need to be the worthy wives of these husbands. At our front line, we need to do everything possible and impossible. In fact, a month ago, we were speaking to Katerina, and she said really a very nice phrase, a very proper phrase. The people who don't have relatives in Mariupol, they live through this grief in a different way. So, of course, everybody has his or her own grief. But in fact, the people who don't have relatives in Mariupol, they cannot understand us. So it's easier for us to communicate with each other. It's important for us to understand each other for 100%.
Вітаю ще раз.
Hello again. Thank you for the opportunity to pose again one more question. Yesterday, in our air, we discussed the address of the wives and mothers and parents of the defenders of Azovstal to Xi Jinping. And some of our experts consider and had an assumption that after this address to the Chinese leader, the most efficient could be the address to the US President, Joe Biden. Do you have such a plan of actions? Some people consider that just Biden really could impact and influence Putin, and that the US president could, in fact, make Kremlin dictator listen. So do you have any plans to speak to the US president, and what are your following steps? Who are you going to speak to? Thank you. I think that the US president is really well informed about what is going on in Mariupol, and if he had a wish to help and to be involved, he would do that. So the US are really already helping Ukraine a lot, helping with the weapons. I'm not sure whether address of Biden could be efficient, but symbolically, I think that we should do everything and we should speak to everyone to support this media campaign permanently. But as for efficiency in communication with Putin, I consider that other world leaders could be more efficient. I wouldn't say that Biden is not efficient, but it seems to me it's not his issue. I don't think it's likely that he would join. And we share this idea. Well, we will not tell about our plans. Yes, we have certain plans. They're rather serious and significant, substantial. We know that there are some strong countries who are capable to help us with extraction. We are waiting until those countries do that. The representatives of these countries. Thank you.
Повернувся.
Okay.
Є в нас додаткові
Do we have additional questions? Yes, I can see
Орисі.
Orisia Hrudka, please. Hello, do you hear me? Yes, we do. Orisia Hrudka, Euromaidan Press. We really admire their courage, but simultaneously we understand that they are human beings. which we can say that they are still defenders of Azovstal. But could you please tell a bit what were they doing before this situation in Azovstal, in Mariupol? Could you tell a bit about the history of your husbands? Because for many of them, they took part in the war in 2014. Could you tell more about your husbands? Not just about the military aspects, but altogether. Thank you. Well, let's start in order. So my husband's name is Dmitro. Since 2014, he became a volunteer in the regiment, which used to be a battalion then, but now it's a regiment. And he's a very kind-hearted person. He really loves animals. I don't know why I decided to tell about that, but we always have always some pet food for the animals. We support different animal shelters. He really likes them, and he's always sending me. As I used to live in Kharkiv and he in Mariupol, we had a distant relationship. He sent me pictures of the dogs from the unit or some cows even. There are always so many animals, and also he was really into sports. They are always running, registering at different marathons. Then I'm just having all those heavy bags with his best friend died in Mariupol. Olga can tell more about him. They, during all of the free time in Mariupol at the unit, they went somewhere, they rode bicycles or went jogging. This year, Dmitro is going to take part in Berlin Marathon. He wanted to register there. He's a very active person. He really loves mountains. And any holiday, if we choose the place where to spend it, we always choose mountains. So those are hiking, life in tents, and so on. He's reading a lot. We have every rotation is beginning and ending with bookstores. I have so many books of his that I don't have spare place for books. This is the main thing what I'd like to tell you about him. That's Dmitro. My husband Arseny, he used to be an active participant of Euromaidan, the Revolution of Dignity. He was wounded during those events by Berkut. And instantly after the revolution was over, he graduated from Kiev Mohyla Academy. He's a historian. And after the student's years, he went to the first combat instantly. He had 3 days of training. That was just the shooting range where they had 10 bullets each, and then they went to the east. He took part in the fights for Ilovaisk. In 2014, he went to Mariupol, and for 8 years, without a single break, he is at the front line. Our relations were distance relations as well. We got acquainted online and communicated online and met only during his days off when he could come to my place to Kiev, or I could come to the unit to Mariupol. Arseny also is in for sports. I think that it's about all of the Azov regiments, because it would be impossible to be the military in the regiment if you don't have the very nice physical training. So they are even chosen after some of the physical tests. Also, he loves reading, he loves philosophy and history, and this is what's our common grounds, because we found that as a common topic, and that's how we fell in love with each other. My husband is Denis Prokopenko. He used to work in different spheres where English was needed because he graduated from the foreign language department. He is the English teacher, and he's a very sporty guy. He was instantly into all of the kinds of sports, football, boxing, and so on. So we discovered Kharkiv. In Kharkiv, some of the kind of skiing and rafting and alpinism and hiking. All of the extreme outdoor sports were always done in our lives. He's a person who is very kind-hearted for me because he really loves animals. When we can see animals, well, I'm just getting crazy, and he always supports me in all of that. And we are always feeding the animals, any of them who we meet on our way. This year, we were planning to take part in the swimming competition in the open water through the Dnieper River. That was the huge mileage, but the war began and everything stopped. The best sports for him is skiing. He is feeling very comfortable during skiing. He is totally opening himself and really adores it. He's reading lots of books. He went as a volunteer in 2014 just by the call of his heart, and he achieved everything himself thanks to the discipline, thanks to his stamina and everything what he had. He always achieving everything on his own, and it's not surprising because he has this kind of his real roots of a warrior. His grandfather, no, his great grandfather, yes, that's a mistake. His great grandfather took part in the Winter War from the Finnish side against the communists. So it really is reflected now in his actions, in his behavior. It's very symbolic. And I'm waiting when he's coming back, and we will ski together and go hiking again. Well, you know, I'm listening to the stories, knowing lots of Azov regiments. It's so weird to me that they are being people are afraid of them. This propaganda makes people afraid of them, but each of them really likes animals. They're going for sports. They show incredible results. And when they were searching some of the animals, I saw the pictures how they fed or gave water to cats. When you know them, reel them from within, it really changes a lot. But this propaganda makes them as if they're so harsh. It's weird to us. My husband is very tall. He is into CrossFit. So I was always inspired by his results because with his height, it's not that easy to be in CrossFit. So when he's wounded, I'm sure that his strength of will and my love, of course, still helps him hold on. I believe in that. But also, my husband, as all the rest, he went to war after the students' years. It began after the war came to their homes. They went to the east, so their situations are really similar. But I would like to tell about my best friend who died on the 25th of March. That is Maxim Kahal. He's the champion, the world champion of kickboxing. He always, since 2015, he was in the National Guard, and he always took part in all of the competitions which were only possible, and he always took the first place. Sometimes it was even a joke that if he is going there, no one could go there anymore because he would be the winner. But when I asked him, he said, I'm winning not because I am doing everything possible. So he, whatever it was the affair, in the commandment, in the management, in the military affairs, he's always did everything possible. He had an award that is the beret, and he always was a worthy warrior and the son of Ukraine. And we even joked that not a single bullet can kill him because he was so rapid and quick. We were always joking that we are riding our car too slow in comparison with his running. And when he was tired, he was just out of his strength and efforts to counteract against aviation bombs, but still I consider him that he is defending Ukraine. Since the 25th of March, he is in the refrigerator, which is out of power, as many as other bodies of our warriors. So for us, it's so important during the process of extraction not to take only the alive people, the wounded people, but the dead bodies as well. Because for Ukrainians and for us in particular, this is the honor to bury every this is the case of honor, to say goodbye to all of them in the appropriate manner. Moreover, because since 2015 he said that he would like to see an oak tree on his grave, so we need to do that. Thank you, and thank you for the question. The next question will be the last one. Could you use the function raise your hand if you would like to pose the question now?
Чи можливо вже питань немає після
Or are you out of questions after such stories, after such a detailed history of their lives?
Так, ну я думаю, останнє питання.
Well, I think the last question will be then from Antonina Kucherenko, please. That's TV channel Kyiv again, Antonina Kucherenko. Ladies, maybe your husbands have compared the situation with what happened in 2014 and 15 and what is happening now, because we just can't understand how it could happen today after the 8 years of war. What was the difference between the situation then and now? Well, what is happening now? The war with two equal parties are fighting each other? No, they just polish Azovstal with the bombs, with shells. There's nothing to say. The situation is very obvious, and this difference is really obvious. The situation in the city in 2014 and 15, we had less skills, fewer skills, it was hard, but there was rotation, some of the food and ammunition was brought, but now we just have the encircled factory. 11,000, 11 kilometers, square kilometers of the occupied territory, with lots of wounded, with lots of blood and sweat and suffering, without the food, and the food which they shared with the civilians, the medicines as well. And thanks God there are no civilians left, but there is some of the food left under the rubble. This is not the war now. It used to be the war. Now it's not the war. To say in the appropriate way, we can compare this situation with the events of World War II, if we speak about Europe. But if we speak about something closer in time for us, that's Syria. Mariupol is Aleppo. In Europe, after 1945, it never happened anything like that. It never happened. The big difference is that in 2014, they were not trained, they did not have any preparations, they didn't know how to shoot Kalashnikov. Some of them don't know how to do that now, but they are now ready for that full-scale invasion and full-scale war, because during these 8 years, they were working on their skills, they were developing themselves as the soldiers, they were permanently working and getting ready. They were improving their skills both in the air, on the land, and in the water, because they had even some of the underwater training. So yes, they were always telling about that with pride. During these fights in Mariupol, they showed the best results. And they're still showing that. They're still showing the best results. They just take Molotov cocktails and throwing them onto the tanks. That's incredible courage, and they are just incredible. That is why we need to extract them. This is the experience which we need to share. These are the information, wonderful stories. The journalists will be able to create lots of films and write lots of books, because it's a real treasure for them. The most important for us is to save their lives, not to do that post-mortem. As we will be doing everything possible to help them, and we urge everyone, please act. Thank you so much, ladies. We thank you, the journalists, for the questions. So let us finalize our today's press conference. It was broadcast in several channels, and also we'll have a recording. We thank the interpreter who made this broadcast possible in English. Thank you. Thank you so much to all of you. Thank you. Goodbye. Goodbye.